Creepypasta is a genre that has deeply influenced the online landscape of horror for several years. Being that it's so influential, it's only right that fans of the medium would create fan material based off of their favorite stories. Examples include fan art, fan edits, and fan games. It's also no surprise that there are a lot of games. Some of those games are able to perfectly replicate what made the original scary, if not make it better. Let's get into some of those games. Oh, and by the way, thank you so much for 50k subscribers, 100k coming soon. Lavender Town Syndrome, Ben Drowned, and Mario. What do all these creepypasta have in common? Well, they're all based off of Nintendo games. Games that most of us would consider the opposite of scary. Imagine if you could access a real test cartridge of Nintendo games that were a little off. Well, Nintendo.exe can fulfill that wish. This game, created by Randy Becker, simulates an odd demo cartridge from Nintendo themselves. It contains all the classics: Super Mario World, Super Metroid, Link to the Past, and Kirby's Avalanche. I guess Kirby's Superstar wasn't in development yet? I don't know. Anyway, you can choose to play these games in any order you want. I chose to start off with Link to the Past, and wow, the imagery here is really good. The small window gives off this feeling of being closed in, like you can't really escape even if you wanted to. Link also looks like he's either possessed or straight up dead, so that's a nice touch. As you traverse the land, you'll notice not only a lack of color, but also a large amount of bones littering the area. In fact, nearly everything is bone related. But whose bones could these be? Did some sort of creature wipe out the entirety of this area a long time ago, and now only the victim's bones remain? I wonder what other mysterious things this level will hold. Oh. Admittedly, while playing this with full volume, that did get me the first time, so kudos for that. Overall, I think that the Legend of Zelda portion of this game replicated the original well, and I wouldn't mind seeing a full version of it at some point. Now on to Kirby's Avalanche. You'll now notice before we click on the game that the hub is a little bit different from how we left it last. The music is in reverse and there's some type of weird smoke covering the screen. But whatever, I'm sure it's nothing. The Kirby's Avalanche section plays as typical at first, at least I assume it does. However, unlike that game where I'd guess Kirby is always happy, in this one he is completely void of emotion. Really, his whole side is like a void. The background is completely pitch black, unlike the night sky shown on the player's side. After a little bit, the screen shifts. Now the background is changed to somewhere outside, or maybe a basement with a large light in the top left corner, who knows. Help Me is written on the side of Kirby, and he shifted from his usual pink to a gray, similar to the color Link was as well. Link also had no eyes just like Kirby does, so there may be a reason why these characters look the way they do. The characters used on the player's side have also turned into glitched blocks of code. After some time, Kirby looks at you. This is the kind of fourth wall breaking I got into more in my previous video. I really enjoy subtle things that directly target the player themselves. After a little longer, Kirby launches himself at the player. Jump scare number 2. A very cheesy one, but it did get me the first time, as embarrassing as that is to say. After closing out of the game, it seems like things have gotten even worse. The main lobby is now completely silent with a pair of red eyes staring directly at the player. This could be some type of spirit that's possessing the game, but I'm not sure. I guess we'll have to find out as time goes on. Next, I decided to pick the only game that was already meant to be scary: Super Metroid. We open up in a desolate and smoky corridor. This already doesn't have the brightest imagery, but it gets even worse just a little bit ahead. On the ceiling, we notice the words "Help Me" written in red. This phrase will continue to be written on the floor and ceiling of the level. This makes me think that an entity outside of the game is leaving a message for the player. Then again, it could have been left by a former player who wasn't able to make it out alive. As Samus walks forward, 1, 2, and then several Metroid appear. It gets overwhelming pretty quickly, but suddenly, they disperse. Everything is quiet. Too quiet. Of course, like the other games, there's a reason for that. In the lobby, we're now greeted by a pair of red eyes staring at us while something is audibly breathing in the background. Well, there's only one game left. Let's go. The background of Super Mario World is clearly glitched. At this point the game is corrupted, even made more obvious by the fact that the game constantly freezes and glitches out every couple of seconds. The first room spells test, and after jumping down a hole we're greeted with this screen. The area is now covered in a red substance. As well as that, the blocks now spell help me. Before jumping down the next hole, we're briefly shown this image. It looks like a person with no eyes screaming. Now the Kirby and Link sprites make way more sense. This person's spirit must be possessing the game. After jumping down the hole again, the background is completely pitch black. Mario is alone. The player is alone. It's completely silent. Well, it was completely silent. After this, restarting the game will only allow you to see an image for a brief second before it closes. Now of course this isn't the scariest game by any means. The jump scares are kind of cheap and the levels are pretty short, but regardless, the sprite work is amazing and the fourth wall breaks always add to the creep factor. This game is a great replica of what exactly a real creepypasta game would be like, and for that I think it should be in this video. Now, on to the next one. Sonic PC Port is a phenomenal creepypasta game that does a ton of things right. If I give a play-by-play of every single game like the last one, we'll never see the end of this video. That being said, this time I'll go over this one in a summary style. The version I played consists of only two areas, the base Green Hill Zone and Angel Island Zone. In the beginning of the game, you can already notice that a ton of background and foreground aspects are more animated. Because this game is so smooth and well made, it makes the game feel more scary. Perhaps this is because it seems like an official game, but who knows. Two places that this aspect of the game are most prevalent in are on the last part of Green Hill Zone and on the second part of Angel Island Zone. On the last section of Green Hill Zone, we can see flowers blinking or opening and closing their mouths, while on the second part of Angel Island Zone, we can see eye-filled plants looking around at the player. The second positive aspect this game has is the art for Sonic. The way Sonic is portrayed is far beyond the representation of Sonic.exe. This Sonic is ghoulish, demonic, and genuinely terrifying. This creature seems like something the player would genuinely want to get away from. However, of course, they can't. The only chase scene this game has is pretty interesting, mainly because it's not just a straight path. You have to use Tails' propeller ability in order to avoid being burned alive, and afterwards you lose your Tails, which prevents you from running as fast. Little things like that show how Sonic is just toying with Tails, making him think that he has a chance to escape before ripping it away from him and taking his life. The final positive aspect this game has is the ability to break the fourth wall. The game will greet you by your name, and after opening the game for the second time, Sonic will get angry if you continue to read text documents left by Tails. Eventually, Sonic will open up his own text files before the game closes out. Fourth wall breaking is always great in horror. I don't think I need to elaborate on that too much. But if you'd like to see me do that a little bit more, visit my last video. Super Mario World has a few popular creepypasta. I Hate You and Mario both come to mind. The former being about a hidden Super Mario World Easter egg about a level in which you end up fighting Luigi, the person who hates Mario the most. The latter being a story about a Mario romhack someone got off the SMW Central forums that ended up having some pretty disturbing undertones. But today, I thought I'd talk about the lesser known and therefore lesser talked about hack, Coronation Day. It's hard for me to fully describe the story of this ROM hack, to be honest, but I'll try my best to convey why this game is so scary in this video. This is definitely one I recommend you experience for yourself, and it will be linked below along with the other games. I'll also only be covering one ending, however I may cover more in a standalone video. The game opens up with Mario standing in the woods before a text box pops up stating, "Again?" It then drops you into an empty hub world with only trees surrounding an eyeless Mario. At first the level is desolate but normal. However, over time it gets darker, and while this is happening, strange things occur. Text boxes pop up stating things like, "Everything is fine," and "They told me all about you." During this time it begins to rain and bodies of Mario enemies litter the stage. You'll meet one living enemy, but this happens. Eventually you'll reach a black screen that says, "I believe I am the god of this forest. Are you looking for me? I am the one that..." Suddenly, a creature that looks very similar to Princess Peach tries to attack Mario. Now if you end up making it past her, you'll get a text box saying, stay away from, before you're forced to jump into a hole. When Mario comes to, he's a shadowed figure among a bunch of glitched textures that look exactly like the Princess Peach creature that attacked them earlier. The text boxes during this level read as follows: "Is that really me? I am the true king." After this, Princess Peach is shown walking through the original version of the level we started on before it was destroyed. The level slowly gets worse as the text boxes tell Princess Peach that she's the only one who's really trying, however everything is still her fault. After jumping down a hole, we start again with Mario this time. While walking, we're greeted with text boxes that sound like they're from a conversation, with the first two telling someone to come here and the second two talking about a harsh color that he likes. When you finally do make it to the end, you'll be greeted with an Easter egg upon clicking the R button. This game is really good, and this segment in the video doesn't do it any justice. There are several alternate endings and a lot more to the story. That being said though, here you can still understand why exactly this game is so scary. It genuinely feels like a real creepypasta game, however it has a level of complexity beyond the typical creepypasta story. There aren't many games that can hold a candle to it for many reasons. The music, text boxes, and scary sprites all come together in order to make a phenomenal game. Of course, I have to include a couple of Pokemon creepypasta games. The two I decided to include today are Creepy Black and Lost Silver. Creepy Black is an extremely popular Pokemon creepypasta about an old Game Boy cartridge the author gets that ends up holding some pretty creepy material. Okay, I basically just described the majority of gaming creepypastas, so let me elaborate. The Creepy Black Game Boy hack follows the story to a T. Every single detail, from the ghost randomly appearing in the trainer's party to the option to curse the trainers and Pokemon you fight to the, ending. Let's just say it's very true to its source material, and that's exactly why I'd recommend it. Honestly, if you somehow haven't read the story, I'd actually recommend you to play it more, as it may come off as an even creepier experience. Seeing as I said a couple of Pokemon games earlier, I should get into the second game on my mind, Pokemon Lost Silver. This game is not only true to its story, which is already great, but it's also the first creepypasta game I ever played. Back then, I'd only seen other people play creepypasta games like Markiplier and SomeOrdinaryGamers, so I'd never actually tried one. And honestly, Lost Silver was great. Although I wouldn't consider the game scary, it is scarily accurate to the original story. It honestly feels like a Pokemon cartridge that someone hacked, which is impressive considering it's not even a ROM. You've seen some of the game while it's been playing in the background, but that's the regular main game. The hidden path is a much more interesting section. When you get to the section that tells you to turn back, click no several times until you get a prompt saying, "Hurry his." When that happens, you'll be able to walk backwards through the corridor and then through a maze before appearing on Mount Silver. At first, Red stands in front of you, but he then disappears and you're left with no eyes. Speaking of that, you also have a Typhlosion with no eyes. After leaving the mountain, you'll discover your rival and his Pokemon. If you talk to the Pokemon, you'll discover it also has no eyes. When you defeat it, it'll turn into a Totodile before fainting. And talking to your rival causes him to say, "Even," before disappearing. Walking back to the mountain causes you to fly to somewhere that reminds me of Goldenrod City, but I could be wrong. You'll be able to talk to a bunch of eyeless NPCs, these being Oak, the Elite Four, and the 8 Johto gym leaders. They all give you letters, which when put together in the second area say, "Who are you, kid?" Leaving this place causes you to be on the path to the Bell Tower. You see an apparition of red, what I believe to represent your old memories, run towards the tower. When you try to get near the middle of the first room, the dialogue tells you to go away. If you persist, you'll end up exactly where you started.